Namaste.
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 Really big welcome to Dr. Ananda for joining us. We're going to give a bit of introduction about you, and we're so excited that you're with us on this yoga therapy course. We're hugely honoured, and we know all the students are really excited as well. So for anyone who doesn't know Dr. Ananda, just the main thing is he is our teacher at Ananda Ashram. And from my heart, he's been such a blessing in my life. Just such a great energy, such a happy soul, and he also has so much information and knowledge and such a great way of passing through this yogic wisdom. So that's just how I personally feel. I'm just so happy that Ananda is in my life. And also he's a medical doctor, so he has all that medical background. He's a son and successor of Dr. Swami Gitananda Giri. He's obviously director at Ananda Ashram and a professor of yoga therapy at the Saita University, Medical University. Also, Dr. Ananda is in lots of committees for the Ministry of Ayush in India. And he has, I remember he has 9 sets of letters after his name, so he has lots of qualifications. It's complete, 9. And so it's such a huge wealth of knowledge, and just once again, we're so grateful that you're with us.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yes. So I'll hand over to Nyandev, and Nyandev's just going to ask a few questions, just so that we can get a bit more idea for the yoga
Once
therapy.
again, thank you very much, Ananda. I think for me, before I really start asking, for me, you are my guru and my mentor, and I guess all the teachings and then the way it's coming through me, I do feel like somewhere back in my head, you're always there, either through the online lessons I hear, or the readings, I all the teachings you're sharing, or whatever I read or hear, and the way I write, read, and sort of really process things, you are back in of my head. So thank you for being there, and hopefully I always.
It's a nice place to be in your head.
I hope I'm always worthy for it. So yeah, let's start with our yoga therapy. So I guess our first question, can you just please tell us a little bit about you as a doctor, and then your role as a yoga therapist? How does like two of these sciences come together?
Yeah. Basically, I consider myself a human bridge. I consider myself a human bridge, and that I'm bridging our traditional, ancient art and science of yoga with the modern empirical medical science. So what I find is that there are 2 different perspectives. The modern medical perspective is a breakdown, reductionist perspective, where the human being is broken down into all its components. So we say there's a human being, we break that human being down into the systems into the organs into the tissues down to the cells, and then we go into the subcellular, atomic and subatomic particles. Mm-hmm. Whereas yoga says, let's go the other way. And so it says, you're not just the physical body. You have a functional existence, you have a psychological existence, an intellectual, and a universal existence. So I feel that the modern medical science perspective is one perspective like a microscope, and the yogic perspective is like a telescope. Now, when you have the microscope and the telescope, you start to have the whole spectrum of the perspective open up to you. So when I went into medicine, I already have had the yoga as part of my life. So when I went into medicine, I approached modern medical science through a yogic perspective. And so in modern medicine, I found all the yogic aspects. So for me, today, I don't find any dichotomy, I don't find any friction, I don't find any challenge, because for me, yoga and modern medicine, they coexist in me, in my life. And I have been blessed to work in a medical university where we can have the medical management of various disorders along with the yogic management. And so we have what can be called a complete, holistic, humanistic, integrative management for all our patients. And more than 75,000 such participants have benefited from this type of management. It's not just yoga or modern medicine, but it's yoga and modern medicine. And I think this is a beautiful combination where we get the best of both. We get the best of the medical knowledge and the best of the yogic science. So yes, I have found that it is not just conceptual. I have found it to be actual. I found it to be beneficial. And in me, I find a very beautiful sense of sukham or ease when I can bring both these beautiful sciences together.
I guess my next question, I know that you can talk about it all day, or even if we go and search on Google, Dr. Ananda Balayogi Bhavanani and yoga research, there are hundreds and hundreds of articles come up in that way. But can you just tell us a little bit about your work in the field of yoga research and yoga therapy, please?
Actually, since the year 1999-2000, I got involved in yoga research. And I grew up in the ashram knowing of the term yoga research because Swamiji and Professor Madan Mohan, right in the early 1980s, were doing a lot of yoga research at JIPMER, which is one of the premier medical institutions of India. And before that, Swamiji in the 70s had also done work with other professors. But through Dr. Madan Mohan, who has continued to be my mentor, my yoga research mentor, and till this moment is still guiding me, what I found is that there was an ample opportunity. So I started working in JIPMER under Professor Madan Mohan in various projects. These projects then slowly developed into what became the Advanced Center for Yoga Therapy. And then this grew into what today we have as CITER at Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth. And over the last 20 plus years, nearly 300 publications of scientific research, understanding the hows and whys of yoga. So we have looked at the effects of yoga at the physiological level, because primarily I worked with the Department of Physiology. So most of our work focused on the physiology. So in normal healthy volunteers, what happens to the heart? What happens to the lungs? What happens to the nervous system? What happens to the brain? And then this we started looking at school children, people who were training to be police officers, police trainees, and then patients of various conditions. This then expanded into our medical, paramedical students. And what we found in overall, if you look at all our yoga research, the primary finding would be that the practice of yoga, be it asana, pranayama, mudra, bandha, it doesn't matter. The practice of yoga enables us to restore equilibrium, harmony of all the body systems. So whether your heart is out of order, your brain is out of order, the lungs are out of order, your kidneys out of order, or you are out of order, what yoga tries to do is bring you back to that place of optimal balance where you are functioning at the best, most efficient version of yourself. So your heart, if it is beating too fast, yoga brings it down to normal. If it's beating too low, yoga brings it up to normal. If your blood pressure is high, it brings it down to normal. If your blood pressure is low, it brings it up to normal. And this reiterates the concept of yoga in the Bhagavad Gita, samatvam, which is equanimity. So yoga as equanimity, equilibrium, and homeostasis. And the autonomic balance, that is the sympathetic, parasympathetic, has been a major part of our research. Work on right nostril, left nostril, how those impact physiological functioning. And recently, I think a very beautiful work where we work with the faculty of dentistry. Now you may wonder, what is dentistry and yoga doing together? Well, what we did was we were working with the faculty of dentistry in children who had autism. And children with autism have very bad dental hygiene. And so the dentistry faculty, the pediatric dentistry, they have a whole program of training people, educational material, videos to help them learn dental hygiene. And the research was, along with that, what happens if you add yoga? And well, it's no surprise, those children who receive the dental education plus yoga improved tremendously more better than those who were just getting the dental education methodology. And it's amazing that smallest of places, it starts to make differences, and in greatest of ways. Because if those children have better dental hygiene, their whole overall health is going to be better. If they are healthier, the parents are going to be happier and healthier. The family is going to be happier and healthier. Society is going to be happy and healthier. So I think our research has been research that is not just in the lab, but we have also brought it into the community, and we have showed the effects in the community in what they call translation of from the lab to the bedside. And for us, it's not just bedside, it's right into the homes of people themselves.
Wonderful.
Thank you. I guess our next question is a little bit really asking for the blessing, and then, so what advice would you give us all? And I do include myself in it too, because it's for me, honestly, it's such an amazing opportunity to also extend my own study and go back into studying, because it's been quite a few years where I was just like teaching and not doing study. So what advice would you give us all, and also potential therapists, yoga therapists?
Well, I would say that the key is that we must remember that we never know it all. So we are always constantly learning. And though you said you were not learning recently, every time you teach, you learn. So the practice for me, I think I learn the most by teaching, in fact, which is why I love teaching, because suddenly new parts of my consciousness open up. So I think it's a very beautiful experience. And what I would feel is that we should be ready to learn. We should be ready to re-evaluate our own thinking process. Because one of the major issues when people think of yoga as a therapy is that they come to it expecting you will teach one asana for one disease. And we need to break out of one asana that will cure one disease. It's never going to be like that. The second thing we need to break out of is that the same practice will do the same thing in everybody. It will not, because each individual is different. So the yoga therapy implies a lot of common sense, seeing what is that individual, where they are, what do they need to do to get where they can be. So where they are, where they need to be, what tools can help them get there. And the tools may be the same, they may be different for different people who externally may be labeled with the same medical diagnosis. And this is something that I think everybody should be aware while you're taking up a course in yoga therapy, or rather yoga chikitsa, the application of yoga as a therapy, is that there is no one asana for one disease. Second thing, there's no one protocol for one disease that everybody you can apply. It may be very different. Somebody may need right nostril, somebody left nostril, somebody the standing, somebody the sitting. Is going to be varied, which is why your toolkit has to be a toolkit that you have practiced. The most important part here is you should have practiced those techniques yourself so that you understand the technique, and then you will know which technique will suit the individual. If your knowledge is only going to be bookish knowledge, Dr. Ananda in lesson 35 has said that this asana is good for diabetes. If you're going to keep it there, you will never succeed as a yoga therapist. When you do that practice, when you experience what is happening in you when that practice is coming alive, you will know which person will benefit from that practice and which person you may not want to give them that practice because you don't want that to happen to them. So I think we need to be the guinea pig of our own therapy schedules. Keep learning, be able to reevaluate, and understand you may not always be right. I once gave a patient the left nostril breathing. He came back after a month and he said, Dr. Ananda, I feel so great. Everything is wonderful. I said, that's wonderful. I'm so happy. He said, but you know what? You told me to do left nostril breathing. I didn't like it, so I started doing right nostril breathing. And I'm like, oh my God, what's happened to him? And he said, and now I can sleep well. My blood pressure is normal. My blood sugar is normal. I'm perfectly okay. See, what I thought he needed was left nostril. But he started doing right because he did not feel comfortable with left. Ended up showing that the practice which I may have initially thought is not good for him practice, he needed, his body found that he needed it. So I need to be, as a therapist, have humility and say, maybe I don't know it all. And after that, we actually did a full-fledged research study on how right nostril breathing may be safe in people who have elevated blood pressure. Till then we said, you have elevated blood pressure, don't do right nostril. But that person taught me to reevaluate my thought pattern. And we have to keep on reevaluating ourselves. Each individual who comes to us seeking care, they are a care seeker. We should be a care provider. That is the most important part. And to be a care provider, we must care and we must be careful, which means full of care.
Lovely.
It's really nice. Thank you. So our last question, what is your personal interpretation or the definition of yoga therapy?
Yoga therapy is the application of the teachings of yoga to suit the individual, enable that individual to work on enhancing their own health and happiness, and be the guideline that can help that individual become the best version of themselves. It is an empowering process. It enables the individual to do it for themselves. Initially, we have to guide them. Initially, we have to, sort of care for them and be with them as a support system. But ultimately, that individual should be given the power to take responsibility for their own health and happiness. That is the key message of yoga therapy. Make the person independent, ultimately. They should not forever be dependent on us. If the care seeker is always dependent on us, well, we have not yet come to that point. Yoga therapy has to come alive in them to such an extent they can become independent and learn to take the responsibility for the health and happiness in their own hands.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think I want to pick up on one of your points as well, about inculcating those practices so we're our own guinea pig. And I think it's really good just to remind everyone on the course that all the videos of practices we put up, don't just do them once and think, I've done that. Just repetition, regularity, the 3 R's. Keep going over them. What was the other one? Repetition, regularity.
Rhythm.
It is so important because it is an experiential science. So to experience it, you have to keep doing it again and again, because with each time you do it, a new dimension opens up to you. It's never the same practice. You can never do the same practice twice, because each time a new dimension will open, especially if you are mindful of the practice.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Ananda, for being with us, and we look forward to having you live on the course. Namaskar.
So happy to be part of it. Let's have a wonderful journey together, and may we be worthy that yoga comes alive through us, and through us become a vehicle of healing for everyone who comes to us seeking for care. Hari Om.